طيب السلام عليكم ورحمة الله وبركاته. بسم الله الحمد لله والصلاة والسلام على رسول الله وعلى آله وصحبه ومن والاه. اللهم لا علم لنا إلا ما علمتنا إنك أنت العليم الحكيم. اللهم علمنا ما ينفعنا وانفعنا بما علمتنا وزدنا علما وأرنا الحق حقا وارزقنا اتباعه وأرنا الباطل باطلا وارزقنا اجتنابه وادخلنا برحمتك في عبادك الصالحين آمين يا رب العالمين. Welcome everybody to I think this is our 11th meeting in Fiqh of Salah. And as usual, we start with our muraja'a. We start with our muraja'a. So we have, alhamdulillah, we're still doing the congregational prayer, Salatul Jama'ah. We started it last week and we discussed it. And today, inshallah, we're going to finish that topic, bi'idhnillahi ta'ala. طيب, let's start with some review questions. Bismillah. طيب. So, السؤال الأول, what was the ruling? We're talking about the madhab here. What was the ruling on the congregational prayer, Salatul Jama'ah? What was the ruling in the madhab? Man yadhkur? Obligatory. They said obligatory on, for the 5 salawat. But what was the shurut? The men, right? The free men, and who are able. So al-qudra wal-hurriya, freed. He's free. He's not a slave. And that they are mature men. Tamam? طيب. What is the ruling of praying jama'ah in the masjid? So remember we said we separate between jama'ah and praying in the masjid, because someone can pray jama'ah outside the masjid, fil bayt مثلا. If jama'ah is obligatory in the madhab, what is the ruling of praying jama'ah in the masjid? من يذكر؟ نعم. To come pray in the masjid jama'ah. We were discussing this in terms of what made some of the madhahib say that it's obligatory to pray in the masjid. But the Hanabila said it's obligatory to pray it's sunnah to pray jama'ah in the masjid. So they said it's fard to pray jama'ah on every individual, okay, for the men, right? But it's sunnah to do it in the masjid. If you could, and this is convenient, especially for those who, مثلا, they have a musalla in their work, like people who work in downtown. Many companies have musallas in the schools and stuff. So this is very convenient for them. So it's sunnah to pray in the masjid jama'ah, but you can pray jama'ah in the house, in the job, wherever it is, inshallah. طيب. If you say takbirat al-ihram right before the imam says at-taslim, the last taslim, did you catch the prayer? Did you catch jama'ah? Naam. So as long as you come in takbirat al-ihram, Allahu Akbar, and the imam hasn't said the salam, the first salam, then you have caught the prayer. And you should do that. If you come and you see them in the last rak'ah, usually you can tell if the imam is sitting in the tawarruk position, right? Or you have a feeling you came really late and it's like, or you heard them while you're doing wudu that they weren't reading this recitation, and you think it's the last one. Some people wait. You shouldn't wait. Come and join, and you would have been included in the jama'ah. طيب. What things we discussed? Some of the things that the imam covers for the follower, right? The ma'mum. What are some of the things that he covers for him? We mentioned maybe 5 or 6 things. The recitation, na'am. So the recitation of the imam is sufficient. The Fatiha is sufficient. What else? Sahu, yes, it's enough. So if you do a mistake, the imam covers it for you. No problem. What else? The sutra, na'am, the sutra in front of him, the imam covers that for you. What else? We talked about that tashahhud, the middle tashahhud, right? If you come in late and you're supposed to do tashahhud after the second one, it's covered by the imam as well. At-tasmi', sami' Allahu liman hamida. You don't say it. The follower doesn't say it. The imam says it. Tamam. What else did we talk about? Tilawa. If you were to read tilawa in your silent prayer, mathalan, right? And obviously you can't do sajda tilawa, it would be covered by him. But aslan, it's not wajib to do. It's not wajib to do that. Okay, I think those are most of the ones that we mentioned. What are some of the sunnahs for the imam? We mentioned 3 sunnahs. When the imam is leading, what are some of the things that are recommended? To make it a really long salah? So it's recommended for the imam to keep it short but complete. Yani it's a complete salah, but not make it too long, right? Except in the known times. Yani Salat al-Khusuf, Fajr usually is long, etc. What else that we said that it's recommended for the Imam? So the first rak'ah is always longer than the second one. To make the first, these are things that are sunnah for him, right? And then the third one we said, if someone is coming in, maybe make the shahud longer so you can catch the jama'ah. Maybe you can stretch another ayah or two, do an extra Subhana Rabbi al-Azim, Subhana Rabbi al-Azim, so the guy can catch the rak'ah or the sajda. Naam.
What's about the order in Quran for qira'at tilawa? The Imam used to read Quran in order or
Yeah, this is the fuqaha they disagreed about this one. I believe the Hanbali madhab, they say that you should read it in order. Naam. Yani if you read in the first rak'ah Baqarah, if you read you shouldn't start with Nas in the first rak'ah. Then you read Nas again. Some say, well, you just read Nas again. So you should do in order. Yani I think in the Maliki madhab it's more flexible. I think so. The order as well? Okay, طيب. I think it's similar. طيب. Jamil. So now we go to Faslun fi Ahkam al-Imama and the rulings of the Imam. So choosing an Imam. So they say here, so this is who leads the Imam, who leads the Salah, who's allowed to lead the Salah, who's not allowed to lead the Salah. So they say, Al-Aqra, let's read the Arabic first. Al-Aqra'u al-Alimu, okay, fiqha salatihi awla min al-afqah. Okay, إيش يعني؟ يعني الأقرأ والعالم فقه صلاته. When we say أقرأ, يعني the one who has better reading, knows more Quran. So they will say here, okay, because we have a hadith, يَأُمُّ الْقَوْمِ أَقْرَأُهُمْ لِكِتَابِ اللَّهِ. So what does it mean now أقرأ here? Someone who knows more Quran, or someone who reads better Quran, or someone who has a nice voice? These are three things, right? So someone might be a hafiz, reads properly, and has a beautiful voice. Khalas, make sure we put him in front. But there's another thing. So that's related to recitation. But then there's the one who knows fiqh salah. Okay, so let's split them in three things. You have the recitation, someone who knows fiqh salah, the rulings of salah that we're covering here, sahu and arkan and wajibat, and someone who's faqih, alim yani. Okay, if someone had great recitation, hafiz, and he's a faqih, he's the first. Okay, and if we had two fuqaha with two great recitations, that's a great name. Who do we put forward? Huh? Ahsant. Naam, al-asan, because we have other hadith talking about al-asan. Yeah, and then what if we have both of them are old and right? You go to other things, yani, I don't know. Huh? Rock, paper, scissors? There are other things, like they say, the one who's, what is the other things that you can, I don't know, the one who's been longer in the community, things like that are known amongst us, Huh? Maghribi, Jazairi, like. Yeah. So someone should not lead while others don't want him to lead. Yes, na'am. Yes, this is mentioned in the more advanced books of fiqh. But yeah, if there's someone who people dislike his voice or dislike his, he shouldn't lead. Na'am. And as long as it's legitimate, it's not some racist thing or some, as long as something legitimate, right? And this happens in the masajid. Yani, someone might lead, and his voice is not good, and he makes issues, and people don't want him to lead. The person should be addressed. We're going to talk about things that you should, imam, if he has them, he shouldn't be leading. A person shouldn't be leading. So let's say al-aqra al-alim fiqh salatihi awla min al-afqah. They're saying that the one who has good recitation and just knows fiqh salah is better to lead than the faqih. You had a faqih, mathalan, right? And that's why sometimes like an alim will tell like a qari to go ahead, as long as the qari has a good recitation, because the point is that the people enjoy the recitation, but also that the Imam knows the fiqh of Salah. There's different levels, but that's what is mentioned here. Na'am. And remember what I told you about the one who has hafiz, has good tajweed, proper recitation, and a beautiful voice. What are we going to do? What are we going to prioritize? We're not going to prioritize hifz. And this is important to understand. It's not about who has more hifz. It's about who has better tajweed, okay, and the voice. Right? As long as, and so if someone has a decent amount, 2 juz' مثلا, and he has good tajweed and a good voice, he should lead. Right? Versus someone who's a hafiz, but he's making mistakes. And we'll talk about, there's different levels of mistakes. Okay? قد يكون خطأ يحيل المعنى وخطأ لا يحيل المعنى. A mistake that it changes the meaning, and a mistake that doesn't change the meaning. We'll talk about that in detail. So they say, best person to lead prayer is one who has following 2 qualities, one who knows the rules of recitation, right? Right, and in the madhab they say that this takes preference over the amount you have memorized. So if someone says, fulan, he knows 25 juz', okay, but his recitation is not so good, okay, and this guy knows 10 juz', but his recitation is beautiful, we pick him. He should lead because it's going to bring more people to the masjid, people enjoy the salah more. Wallahu a'lam. طيب. And he knows the fiqh of salah. He should know fiqh of salah. طبعا, we're going to talk about what happens when there's someone who is disliked to lead, but there's no one better than him. They say, well, he leads those who are at his level. And the only reason why he's leading is because there's no one better than him. Okay? We'll talk about it inshallah. طيب, next they say, and this is a big mas'ala, so let's talk about it. Okay? They said, وَلَا تصح الصلاة خلف فاسق. This is a big mas'ala. They say that the salah is not accepted, okay, behind a fasiq. Okay? It's not valid behind a fasiq. من هو الفاسق? طبعا they define here, so the author here defines al-fasiq, right? Al-fasiq is the one who من أتى كبيرة أو داوم على صغيرة. Whoever has done a kabira, a major sin, okay, قتل, zina, those major sins, أو داوم صغيرة, or someone who just keeps doing the minor sins and has no problem with it. They say this is a fasiq. فاسق, someone who خرج عن طاعة الله. This is the linguistic meaning. Okay? And they say here, وَالْكَبِيرَةُ مَا فِيهِ حَدٌّ فِي الدُّنْيَا أَوْ وَعِيدٌ فِي الْآخِرَةِ. They're saying that what's a major sin? A major sin is something that there's a punishment mentioned for it, specific. Tamam? And a lot of things we think they're not kaba'ir, they're kaba'ir. Right? Like backbiting. And there's a lot of, it's harder to come up with sagha'ir. When you try to come up, you'll see that it's actually harder to come up with minor sins. Now this is a big problem. So what kind of fasiq? Fasiq fil aqidah, right? Or is it fasiq fil so they say here, fil af'al. So the author says mutlaqan, this is the sharih, in the hashiyah, the one who's explaining, سواء كان فاسقا من جهة الاعتقاد كالرافضي, the one who is a fasiq from the aqidah, or من جهة الأفعال كالزاني, someone who's like a fornicator. Okay? طبعا this is a big mas'ala. There's another opinion in the madhab that it's makruh. It's makruh to pray behind a fasiq. Some of them go as far as say fasiq مثلا someone who, because they say someone who ارتكب كبيرة مثلا, or داوم صغيرة. And so they say مثلا praying behind someone who, and this is a question that's asked a lot, if you believe that shaving the beard is haram, that's someone داوم a sin, and so they say you're not allowed to pray behind someone like that. And that's فيها كلام. والله أعلم, it seems like the stronger opinion is that it's makruh, right? Now he says here ولا تصح خلف فاسق إلا, except في جمعة وعيد تعذرا به. They're saying here, if you're going to follow with the opinion that your salah is not valid behind a fasiq, they said except in a Jum'ah and a Eid, that there's no one except him. There's no one except him. طيب. ولا إمامة. نعم. صح, it's known. That's what is intended here. يعني if it's not known, how would you know? يعني أنت you know this guy is a يعني he sells drugs. يعني he sells drugs. I don't know. يعني he does many other illegal things, haram things, right? Okay, and يعني some people are saying, oh, let him, because he used to go to Quran school, let him lead or something like that, or he's a big guy in the qarya or something like that. That's what they're talking about, right? But someone who doesn't know about, or someone did a private sin nobody knows about, how would you know? يعني تاب منها يعني, then that's different. But someone who's openly like sin and people know, then he shouldn't be leading the salah, and they're saying that the salah is not valid because they have the hadith, right? But the issue is that this hadith has some weakness, right? The only reason I'm stopping is because this is a big mas'ala, right? And so many people will ask about it. Because there's a hadith, وَلَا يُؤَمَّنْ فَاجِرًا مُؤْمِنًا نعم وَلَا يُؤَمِّنْ فَاجِرًا مُؤْمِنًا. Yeah, so a fajr should not lead a mu'min. Fajr يعني someone who's sinful. نعم تفضل. ايش هو؟ المبتدع. It really depends how you define a مبتدع. يعني المبتدع قد يكون مبتدع من يعني someone might call someone مبتدع because there's a difference of opinion here. You know what I mean? Like I know people who will say someone who recites the niyyah before the salah a mubtada'. And I don't think that's a proper description. Because that is someone who's following an accepted opinion, okay, of the Shafi'i madhab, and it wouldn't be considered a mubtada'. A mubtada' is someone who is doing something that is disagreed upon in all the madhahib, mathalan, and he has no problem with it, then maybe that might be someone who's yudawim like something haram. Does that make sense? So that's why like this is a very gray area and should be left to the fuqaha. Someone to say, oh, this is mubtada'. And sometimes they'll say, oh, mubtada' because he raises his hand after salah. Because he sees that as bid'ah. But Imam Ahmad doesn't. Others don't see it as a bid'ah. Does that make sense? So we have to be very very careful with these things. تمام? The jama'ah of the Muslims is a big priority. I want to make this clear for everybody listening. The jama'ah of the Muslims is a huge priority in the Sharia. The jama'ah of the Muslims is a huge priority. And so to put the jama'ah of the Muslims in jeopardy because of something mukhtalif fih, the hands here, whatever, putting a hat, not putting a hat on the salah, it doesn't make sense. This is not from hikmah, all right? And that person might be falling into sin if he's doing that. I hope that makes sense, because we have to be more accepting. And the person, as Muslims, the more you learn, the more you educate yourself, you will see that the more accepting you are of other Muslims. I'm talking about الذي يسوغ الاجتهاد, things that are acceptable in ijtihad and the fuqaha have discussed, right? But the people who read a few things and they follow just one way and they start putting other people down, they cause more harm than good. Wallahu a'lam. It's a good question. Jazakallah khair.
When the hadith of the fast is not saying a moment, could it be understood that if a person was offered the position to be, that he knows internally?
It could mean صح. لا. It could be, but I think if there's other more capable people, he shouldn't be leading the salah aslan, and people shouldn't put him forward, right? And look, this is a big debate because let me ask you a question: would a murderer or someone who kills many people be a fasiq? Would you consider him a fasiq? Someone who committed murder and killed. طيب, this is discussed in the books of fiqh, and they'll bring the dalil that some of the Sahaba prayed behind Al-Hajjaj. Al-Hajjaj ibn Yusuf ma'ruf. Al-Hajjaj ibn Yusuf caused a lot of corruption, right? And some of the Sahaba prayed behind him. Tabi'in prayed behind him. طيب, okay. So, and he's someone who killed tabi'in and killed righteous people, fuqaha and qurra and المسألة فيها كلام. But to do it intentionally and you have better people, it doesn't make sense. Allah alam. طيب, let's keep going. So then they said, إلا في جمعة, okay. Yeah, they say except if there's a Jum'ah and the Eid and there's no one except him, then you do it. Okay? طيب. Now he's going to start talking about the Imam, okay? Yeah. So here he says after, نعم وتكره, and it is disliked. So the hukum here is karaha. It's disliked. وتكره إمامة لحان وفأفاء ونحوه. Okay. It is disliked for someone to be the imam if they are a lahan. Okay. يعني his grammatical mistakes do not change. This is a lahan, someone who, يعني he makes mistakes but they don't change the meaning. Okay. He makes mistakes in the qira'ah, but they don't change the meaning. يعني maybe he makes a lot of mistakes, he comes back, or maybe he's doing like an imala, okay, changing the sound, or making the ta mufakham and the ta muraqqaq, you know, soft. Yeah, Bismillahi instead of Bismillahi. These, is it changing the meaning? No. But this is called lahan. And they say wafa'fa, someone who keeps repeating the fa. Okay, or ta, someone who repeats the ta and stumbles and these things. So this is disliked for someone to lead the salah if they have that. Okay, وَنَحْوِهِ, يعني similar things. Now we're going to talk about the things that is not allowed for the imam to have. So who cannot be an imam? He says the following: وَلَا إِمَامَةُ مَنْ حَدَثَهُ دَائِمٌ. A person who's his hadath. What's the hadath? We're talking about tahara. يعني his tahara, okay, يعني his impurity is da'im. Someone who has an issue, medical issue, and then he loses his wudu all the time. He has a medical issue. So that person should not lead the imam, lead the salah. Yeah. من حدثه دائم. Okay. The one who is نعم. He can't stay in wudu due to a medical need, right? But the author is going to, let me just list them and then we'll talk about them. So, من حدث دائم ولا إمامة من حدثه دائم وأمي وهو من لا يحسن الفاتحة أو يدغم فيها حرفا لا يدغم أو يلحن فيها لحنا يحيل المعنى إلا بمثله. So this is an important phrase here, إلا بمثله. So they say that person can only lead those who are like him. And if we have like 6 people, all of them have an issue with keeping their wudu. So then one of them can lead the rest. واضح? Does that make sense? And you can count that for all the rest. So the first one is someone مثلا who cannot keep his wudu, whether it's urine or gas or other things, okay, he cannot be the imam unless he is leading others like him. Okay, that's the first one. And then he says وَأُمِّي. And who's the ummi? He says وَهُوَ مَنْ لَا يُحْسِنُ الْفَاتِحَةِ, the one who cannot properly recite Fatiha. Remember why? Fatiha is what? Rukn. And it has to be done properly. أو يدغم فيها حرفا لا يدغم. أو يدغم, al-idgham is when you merge. He starts merging, right? He starts merging words and letters that are not supposed to be merged together. Okay? طبعا there's idgham in tajweed, but they're known. التنوين والنون الساكن, right? But he's there doing idgham that you're not supposed to do idgham. Okay? أو يلحن فيها لحنا يحيل المعنى. Or he does ilhan, يعني he changes the meaning. Okay? He reads improperly, he makes mistakes that change the meaning. What's an example? مثلا he says صراط الذين أنعمت عليهم. For those who know Arabic, if I say صراط الذين أنعمت عليهم, if the asl is what? صراط الذين أنعمت أنت, يعني Allah سبحانه وتعالى. If I say صراط الذين أنعمت, أصبحت أنت الفاعل. Now you're saying I'm the one who bestowed the blessings upon you. How about myself, يعني? And this is like basically like kufr, يعني, right? صراط الذين أنعمت أنا عليهم, right? Right? So this is something that changes the meaning, and this would be considered not permissible for this person to lead the salah. Okay, so this is لحن يحيل المعنى. The first one he says يكره اللحن الذي لا يحيل المعنى. Does that make sense? So not all mistakes are the same. This mistake would be something that we would say this person is not allowed to lead the salah because he's changing the meaning of the Quran, and it can, يعني, he can just that haraka, right? This is the importance of knowing that when you memorize. Just the we change it to u. Now you're saying I'm Allah. Subhanallah. This is how يعني, important it is. Then he says, so إلا بمثله, unless there's like 5, I don't know, maybe 5 reverts and they all have issues reading and there's nobody else to lead them, then one of them will lead even though he has these mistakes. طيب. وكذا سؤال تفضل. Yeah, so it's obligatory on him to fix it. And قد يكون معذور if he has an excuse. And someone just accept Islam, he's working on it, but someone who's like 40 years old, he's been Muslim for a high, he's not excused. He doesn't have an excuse. So that's why it's obligatory on us. طلب العلم واجب على كل مسلم فريضة على كل مسلم. Seeking knowledge is obligatory on every Muslim in the things that are obligatory for you. For someone to learn how to say Fatiha, it's obligatory for them, right? To say it properly, it's obligatory for them. وكذا من به سلس البول. سلس البول is someone who has a problem with urination. It keeps leaking, right? They shouldn't lead except those who like them. وعاجز عن ركوع وسجود. Someone who cannot do ruku' or sujood, they shouldn't lead salah unless it's a bunch of people who they broke like a bunch of people. مثلا in I don't know, something happened to them. All of them can't do that. أو عن قعود ونحوه. Yeah, someone who can't sit, he shouldn't lead those who يعني the one who are fine and healthy. أو اجتناب نجاسة أو استقبال. Or someone who cannot stay away from najasa, who cannot remove najasa from himself, okay? So he should not lead the salah, because remember, اجتناب النجاسة is from the shurut of salah, right? When we said the conditions of salah to be accepted, we have to make sure that there's no najasa on your clothes or the place. أو استقبال, right? Or someone who cannot face the qibla for whatever reason, he should not lead the salah. I can't think of a reason, but someone who cannot face the qibla, right? ولا عاجز عن قيام, okay, بقادر إلا. Or someone who cannot stand, because the qiyam, remember, is one of the arkan of salah is standing, having to stand. They said he's not allowed to lead someone who's sitting, who cannot stand, يعني, cannot lead those who can stand, except the imam of a masjid, okay? إلا راتبا, يعني imam ratib masjid, رجي زوال علته. Except if it's the imam of the masjid who's praying sitting down, and it's expected that he will heal. Okay, he just sprained an ankle, 2 weeks, he'll be high. So it's allowed to pray behind him. How do you pray behind him? Huh? ما رأيكم? Standing or sitting? Huh? You follow the imam. And we have a hadith that the Prophet ﷺ said, if you pray behind Imam sitting, then you should sit like him. And so yeah, if the Imam al-Ratib is injured for a week or two and he's praying sitting down, then you pray sitting down behind him. Yeah, just like him. Okay? ولا مميز. نعم تفضل.
Is there order in those? So for example, if you cannot do ruku' and sujood, but there is somebody else who's bad in
لا الركوع والسجود they didn't it's not mentioned here. They said only someone who sits down. Yani if the imam sits down.
So let's say there's two people. One who can make all of these statements that kind of effective, and the other one who cannot stand.
And so you're talking about everything together. Okay, طيب.
You have two situations. Like who you put first? Like what's the order?
So the example you gave is if you have someone who cannot read Fatiha.
Someone who cannot read Fatiha, and the other one he cannot stand.
He can read Fatiha, but he cannot stand. And he's not the Imam of the high. That's a good question. I don't know.
So is there order? Are those ones in order or just?
Wallahi, the reason why, I don't know if they're in order. I don't think they're in order. Wallahu a'lam. I don't think they're in order because here they're talking about the arkan. And the arkan, there's no priority in the arkan. If someone cannot do a rukun of the salah, the whole salah is not going to be accepted. For what happens here, if there's no one better than two of those two, then one of them has to pray. Because he said, إِلَّا بِمِثْلِهِ. Yani, if we have, it's only two people, yeah, so one of them will have to lead. But if we have another bunch of people, then one of them should be better off, at least. Yani. But if we have a bunch of people with broken knees and can't read Fatiha, then yeah, any one of them will be sufficient. Because the salah has to be prayed, the jama'ah should be prayed. But that's why he said illa bimithli. That's why I said that phrase is very important. He can only lead those who are at his level. Does that make sense? Tamam? Because ma'dhurin. Remember we said the salah, yani the shurut and the arkan. Someone can actually be ma'dhur if he's in the darura. Remember the guy who had a bag on his head, and we said someone who cannot pray. We're going to talk about, the person. What about the person who cannot find clothes? He's naked. So, مثلا, qiyam for him is dropped. He doesn't have to stand. Why? To cover more of his awrah. So they talk about the person who has awrah. Okay, how does he pray? Right? What about if there's a bunch of people who are all of them have no clothes? And when you read these, you're like, how can that happen? Well, it happens. Happened in Gaza, happened in places. They're being tortured in different high. But what if there's like 3 Muslims? They can't cover their awrah. Can they pray jama'ah? So they talk about it in the books of fiqh. They talk about that. So that's why illa bimithlihi is very important. نعم. تفضل. Mm-hmm. Najasa, نعم.
In that case, can't even be with the prayer itself, right?
نعم, الأصل that he shouldn't be there. نعم. Yeah. But for example, someone cannot remove it. It's stuck on him. Yeah, he shouldn't lead the prayer. Something happened, he has a najasa on him. I don't know, like a dog came and urinated on him. He should come lead the salah. Someone else should lead the salah. He should go change his clothes, find a way, figure it out. نعم. قبل انتهاء الوقت. طيب, so we listed the one who has one of the following flaws. Al-Ummi, we said they cannot recite the Fatiha. He does idgham where it's not supposed to happen. He makes grammatical errors that change the meaning. Okay? Unless followers are the same. We said that. Someone who cannot do one of the arkan, right? Cannot abstain from najasa, cannot face the qibla, right? The exception we said the one who cannot stand and prays while sitting with 2 conditions. He is the assigned imam and his sickness is temporary. Okay? Then he says, وَلَا مُمَيَّزٍ لِبَالِغٍ فِيهِ فرض. في فرض عفوا. وَلَا مُمَيِّزٍ لِبَالِغٍ فِي فرض. So a mumayyiz, someone who's below puberty, but he can tell the difference between right and wrong and stuff, but he's not baligh yet, right? So it's not obligatory on him to pray. So for someone who's not obligatory for him to pray, cannot lead those who are baligh, right? Okay. So مثلا, how old are you? Are you baligh? So he can't lead us, right? If he wants, even if he was like, he reads like Sheikh Abdul Basit, mashallah, and except in nafila, in a nafila, right? At home, he can lead you in salah, inshallah. Yeah, na'am? Yeah, tarawih, it's a nafila, because tarawih is not obligatory, right? That's why he says, وَلَا مُمَيِّزٍ لِبَالِغٍ فِي فَرْضٍ, right? So yeah, someone in the nafil prayer here can. Then he goes and says, طب what about the woman? He says, وَلَا امْرَأَةٍ لِرِجَالٍ وَخَنَثَا. Okay? طيب. So he says, and a woman cannot lead men and people of undetermined sex. Al-khuntha is the one who is intersex, an intersex person. What does that mean? It's a medical term. It's not a transgender. في فرق. Al-transgender is someone who changed, right? Changed their, changed or wants to change. Okay? The intersex person medically is the one that in Arabic we say al-khuntha, right? Is the one who is born with 2 organs, and we can't tell which one. Now we have a khuntha mushkil wa khuntha غير mushkil. The khuntha al-mushkil is we cannot determine, and we need some time to see which one grows, which one works, which one doesn't, from his sexual organs. But the one غير mushkil, we know who it is. It's just he was, and this is very rare, like less than 1%, less than 1%. Back in the day, how would the fuqaha figure it out? They would say whichever one he can urinate from, then that's his organ and that's his gender. Tamam? Nowadays, you can find in different ways. Actually, it's more advanced. We can find different ways. So they say that person shouldn't lead a man. Why? The one who's undetermined. The mushkil one. If we haven't determined his... Why? Because he could be a man or he could be a woman. We don't know. للاحتمال يعني. Right? Unless it's just a bunch of people who are khuntha mushkil. Right? Undetermined, people with undetermined sex. Then they can lead each other, no problem. Okay? The woman cannot lead. Illa. There is a very minor opinion. And this is almost ijma' يعني. But the minority opinion, they said, if there's no other man capable. Okay? So they say, Yes. Yani here there's a long discussion about can the woman pray. They said woman cannot lead a man or men unless all the men are not able, okay, and the woman is able, but she leads from behind. This is the condition the fuqaha they put. Okay, no men are available that can recite Fatiha مثلا. It is for nafila prayer, and she leads from the back, okay, not the front. I don't know if this ever happened in history. I'm not sure, yani. But this is discussed in some of the books of fiqh. Na'am.
So for non-balagh boy, can he lead his mom or something like a woman?
Can a non-baligh boy lead his baligh mom?
But my counter to that question would be why would you not in that case?
Wallahu alam, I'm leaning towards no, because he didn't differentiate here. He didn't differentiate. Let me see if he says anything here. Yeah. Yeah. في الفرض الله أعلم no. والله أعلم no. Because here he says ولا مميز لبالغ في فرض. So he didn't say لرجل أو لرجال. Yeah. الله أعلم. I can look into it more inshallah, but الله أعلم. It's a good question. طيب. And then he says ولا خلف محدث أو نجس, someone who doesn't have wudu, right, or has najasa. This is an interesting question here. He says فإن جهلا حتى انقضت صحت لمأموم. So, okay, what they're talking about? They're talking about Imam and two people behind him, or everybody behind him. Okay, so there's hadath and najasa. Hadath, he doesn't have wudu. Najasa, he has a najasa on himself. Okay. It could be that the Imam has a najasa or hadath and he still leads. Is that allowed? No, it's not allowed. If he does that, then nobody's salah is accepted. Okay, that's why the Imam, we have to make sure that he's qualified. Okay. If the Imam is leading and he has a najasa or he lost his wudu and he doesn't know, I'm not sure how that's possible, but the people behind him know. Maybe it's possible he has a najasa on his back, he doesn't see it, and all of you see it on my back, and you're all too shy to tell me, our salah is not accepted. Okay, because we accepted the fact that we're praying behind someone who's not supposed to lead. Is that واضح? طيب. They say here, okay, فَإِن جَهِلَا, both of them, the one who's leading and the one behind him, both of them, they are unaware of any najasa or anybody not, or the Imam not having wudu, okay, until the salah is over, okay, and then in the end, the Imam finds out, oh, subhanallah, I didn't make wudu, okay, صحت لمأموم فقط. The ma'moom, he's fine, okay, but the Imam has to go make it up after. طبعا if he never finds out, that's Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala will pardon that, okay. But if after they both pray, none of them knew going in the salah, none of them knew, they prayed, the salah is over, the ma'moom goes home, he's fine, خلاص. The Imam later finds out, oh subhanallah, I actually didn't make wudu after I did X, Y, Z, and then he has to repeat his salah. Does that make sense? This way, it's this is from the and then he says وتكره إمامة لحان وتكره إمامة لحان. We talked about it. طيب. And then he talks about, okay, yeah, does not have wudu. Okay, طيب, جميل. طيب, now about standing in the congregation, how does it work? And this is important to know for Jum'ah as well. So he says نعم وسن وقوف المأمومين خلف الإمام. It's sunnah for the followers to pray behind the Imam. طيب. فالواحد, what about the single person? Where does the single person pray? What do you think? Behind? Single person. Behind the Imam? Next to him? Huh? Next? طيب. Yeah, right or left? Right? Imam on the right and the... طيب. Jamil, it's good. This is going to be fun. So, نعم. وسن وقوف المأمومين خلف الإمام والواحد, the one, عن يمينه وجوبا. So they say that he has to be on his right wujuban. He has to be on his right because of a hadith we have here. Let me see if I circled it. No. Actually, I wanted to mention something here. وسن وقوف. Yeah. He says here لفعل النبي صلى الله عليه وسلم, okay, مع أصحابه, and then he says ويستثنى من ذلك سورتان, except two situations. العراة, remember we talked about the naked ones who don't have clothes. العراة فيكون إمامهم وسطهم وجوبا. If there's a bunch of people who don't have clothes, they're in their awra, right? Their awra is uncovered. Then the imam prays in the middle between them. Like he doesn't pray in front of them. Why? Because it's astar lil awra. If they were all next to each other, there's less to be seen. But if he's in front of them, right, there's more to be seen, right? That's the exception. And then they said also, وَالنِّسَاء فَتَكُونُ مَنْ تُؤْمِهُنَّ وَسَطُهُنَّ نَدْبًا. So if there's a bunch of women, the one who leads the woman is in the middle. She doesn't go in front. She's in the middle. And this is the opinion of the madhab. نعم. So praying on the left, he says فلا تصح عن يساره لأن النبي صلى الله عليه وسلم أدار ابن عباس خلف ظهره لما وقف عن يساره وجعله عن يمينه. Because of the incident, this is in Sahih Muslim. Ibn Abbas was on his left and the Prophet ﷺ moved him. And they say if it wasn't something that had to be done, the Prophet ﷺ would have left it. Because the movement in Salah is not something, we talked about it, it's not something that is needed unless it's darura. And because the Prophet ﷺ moved him, it must mean that it was a darura. And if it's a darura, it means that he should always be on his right. So that's how they got the hukum. So he should always be on his right, wujuban, okay? وَالْمَرْأَةُ خَلْفَهُ, and the woman from behind. So we talked about, so if there's many followers, sunnah to stand behind the imam, okay? طيب. One person to his right, this is obligatory, we said. And if one woman, okay, stands behind him, and also it's okay if she stands next to him on his right. Yeah, that's also an accepted opinion, okay. نعم. ومن صلى عن يسار الإمام مع خلو يمينه أو فذا ركعة لم تصح صلاته. This is an important question. Whoever prays on the left of the imam and a whole rak'ah is finished, his salah is batil, yani. It doesn't count. But why they say this is because the Prophet ﷺ moved Ibn Abbas and his salah still counted. As long as he doesn't stay there for a long time, he doesn't go through more than one rak'ah, he moves. Someone moves him, he's a jahil, someone moved him, okay, then it's fine. Or they talk about, what about if we're praying jama'ah and there's a line, and then the line is full, and there's only one person. Why do you see people trying to get in or they push someone back? Because of the hadith that there's no prayer for the one who prays by himself, right? And so for him, he needs to fit in somehow, okay? Or some people will actually tap someone to come back with them, okay? Or they'll wait for someone to come in, right? Because it happened in the time of the Prophet ﷺ, a man prayed by himself behind the line, but someone came before the rak'ah was finished. So the Prophet ﷺ says, okay, don't do it again. The Prophet ﷺ told him, don't do that again, okay? So the person who's, if you pray left of the imam and his right is empty, and imam finishes the rak'ah, right, then this rak'ah is invalid for the follower. Yeah, we just mentioned that. If a follower prays alone in a row by himself, which is what we're talking about, without excuse, then his prayer is invalid. Without excuse. Now this, what makes an excuse? Let's say, مثلا, I don't know, he's, what would be the good excuse? What do you guys think is good?
There were two, and then one of them counted the wudu, so it had to be.
That's a good one. That's a good one. Yeah, somebody, he was in a line, and then somebody left the salah or something. What's he going to do now? So that's a udhr. But if someone just comes to pray by himself, and there's space in the line, then his salah doesn't count. So for sure that person, his salah doesn't count. That's why we say always make sure you fill the lines. So you have to make sure that you cannot, that you don't pray by yourself. Now, they say you should tap someone to come back, okay? But what if another excuse would be, I tapped someone to come back, he doesn't want to. It's like, I want the front line. خلاص يعني, they say he can also go stand next to the imam. Worst case scenario, يعني the salah is about to finish, nobody wants to come join you, there's no one making wudu, you can come stand next to the imam, that's fine. You're going to get a dirty look after from the people, but inshallah your salah is accepted, and of course to his right, not to his left. طيب. It says here, if the imam and the followers are inside of the mosque, طيب. Now we're talking about when does it count as a jama'ah? Okay? Like, when does it count as a jama'ah? He says, وَإِذَا جَمَعَهُمَا مَسْجِدٌ صَحَّتْ الْقُدْوَةِ مُطْلَقًا. As long as they're in the same masjid, the imam and the follower, then inshallah it counts as a jama'ah. Okay? And if there was a big space and he's like, the line is over here and the imam is right there, inshallah that still counts as a jama'ah as long as they're in the same masjid. Okay? بشرط العلم بانتقالات الإمام. As long as the person is aware of the intiqalat. He's going ruku', he's going sujood, right? So this hearing the imam is not a shart. Okay? This is the question that comes in the haram. Can I pray from the 5-star hotel while seeing the haram? This is the question that comes up. Or what about the people who follow the haram all the way back, like in Al-Ajyad area. I don't know, you guys, if you're familiar. If you've been to Umrah and if you've been to Mecca, you know what I'm talking about. People pray with the imam in the haram, in the street somewhere. And there's roads, cars driving in between, right? And so Allah alam, that one would not count, right? You have to either see the imam or you're connected with the other jama'ahs and you can see the other lines, right? You don't have to necessarily see the imam. You can see the lines praying behind him, okay? Otherwise, it wouldn't count. Otherwise, we have a hadith of Aisha radiallahu anhu that mentions, okay? Naam. Naam, تفضل.
Two people praying in Jama'ah. You said the follower is standing on the right side, but does he step one step back too, or
Why do people do that? Because there's two situations you're not allowed to do. To pray on the left of the imam and ahead of the imam. So some people will do that intentionally so they don't mistakenly go in front of him, right? But as long as you're equal with him, you're fine. And as long as you're with him, you're fine. Tamam? But some people will do that just for safety. Because if you go ahead of him, there's no salah, right? This happens a lot in Medina, right? In Medina, because people are used to Mecca, they always go Mecca first and they can pray anywhere. You're always behind but in Medina, there's an area you cannot pray, and people pray in front of the masjid, the imam. And also here, if you come here for Jum'ah, you cannot pray in front of the imam. I think it would be good to put a line there, in case we have an overflow. But yeah, you cannot pray behind the imam. So the imam usually is at that last line. As long as you're behind that line, you're fine. I think so. Yeah, I think there's 3 spots maybe there. That's it, and that would be it. طيب. I think I just want to finish this last part here. And then he says, وَكُرِهَ. Maybe we should stop here. Yeah, I think we'll stop here. I wanted to finish this part, but it's okay. Next he was going to talk about, is the imam allowed to pray on a high place? And is he allowed to pray on the roof and we're all down here? Is that allowed? Inshallah, we'll talk about that and other things that are makruh. And we'll stop here, inshallah. If there's a question, we have 2 minutes till the iqamah. Any questions about the content that we covered today? سؤال؟ كله واضح؟ تمام؟ طيب بارك الله فيكم جزاكم الله خير. Inshallah we'll continue next time, and next week inshallah we'll also start talking about أصحاب الأعذار, the people who are excused, right, from the salah, the sick and the ill and others, طيب, and how they pray. Assalamu alaikum.